Okay, welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be unpacking a super fascinating post from MuseTech that literally asks us to completely reevaluate a musical legend and uncover the true origins of classical music. I mean, when we think of this genre, a really specific image usually pops into our heads, right? You know the one: powdered wigs, grand European halls, and one massive name towering above the rest. But what if the very foundation of how we view this whole musical timeline is actually built on a huge misunderstanding? Let's jump right in and rethink the history of the music we listen to.
So, did you know Mozart didn't invent classical music? Mind-blowing, right? It instantly challenges this widespread assumption that's basically hardwired into our collective brains. We naturally just tend to equate the absolute peak of a genre with its beginning. We kind of assume the guy most famous for doing the thing must have been the one who started it. But by shattering this myth right out of the gate, we're forced to totally rethink the timeline of music history. Because if he didn't start it, well, who did? And where does he actually fit into the whole shebang?
All right, Section 1, Separating Fact from Fiction. So, there's this really stark contrast between the myth that society just casually accepts and the actual historical reality. On one side, we've got the common myth: Mozart invented classical music. It's a neat, tidy little package. Makes history super easy to digest, right? But on the flip side, we have the fascinating truth. The timeline of this genre goes much, much further back, completely predating his era. It wasn't just some sudden overnight invention by a lone genius. Actually, it was a slow, deliberate evolution. When we collapse all that history down to just one person, we really miss out on the incredible depth of how art actually develops over centuries.
The original post invites us to, quote, swipe through to separate fact from fiction and deepen your music knowledge. And honestly, that's exactly what we're doing today. This isn't just about snagging a cool piece of trivia to drop at your next dinner party. It's about actively peeling back the layers of pop culture to find the genuine historical roots underneath. We're talking about deepening our foundational understanding of music theory and history so we can go from being just passive consumers to active historians.
Moving on to Section 2, When Classical Music Began.
Okay, so classical music actually has a definitive origin point long before Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart ever even touched a piano key. The timeline stretches way further back than popular culture ever suggests to us. And acknowledging this earlier start, it completely shifts our perspective. It transforms classical music from being this magical invention of one isolated wizard into a grand, sprawling historical conversation. It's literally an ongoing dialogue of notes and theories that was already well underway by the time Mozart even entered the chat.
Next up, Section 3, Composers Before Mozart.
Think of history like a giant relay race. This sequence perfectly captures how that race was run in the classical music world. Step 1, early composers established the classical framework. They laid down the rules of the road, the structures, the instruments, the early theories. Then, Step 2, over generations that musical style evolved. It got tweaked, tested, and expanded by countless individuals playing in courts and churches. And finally, Step 3, the stage is completely set for a prodigy to inherit this rich tradition. Those earlier musicians did all the heavy lifting to build the very stage that a future master would eventually conquer.
We absolutely have to look at the composers who came before Mozart. I mean, we gotta give credit where credit is due, right? Acknowledging the rich tapestry of musicians whose earlier works made the classical era even possible is totally crucial for any true music lover. Without the groundwork laid by those predecessors, there simply is no classical music as we know it today. They were the architects of the sound. Mozart was just the guy who later moved in and decorated the house perfectly.
Which brings us to Section 4, Mozart's true musical genius.
To really grasp his legacy, we have to recognize that he didn't invent the genre, he perfected it. He took an already existing art form, with all its established rules and frameworks, and elevated it to a staggering level of perfection. And that is exactly why he became one of history's absolute greatest musical geniuses. His legacy is built on pure mastery, not origin. You know, it's one thing to invent a tool, but it's a completely different level of genius to take a tool someone else invented and use it to build a masterpiece nobody else could even imagine.
And it is incredibly fitting that the original post uses Mozart's The Magic Flute as its audio backdrop. This specific piece, performed by the Bulgarian National Radio Symphony Orchestra, is just this undeniable auditory reminder of the sheer mastery that earned him that genius title in the first place. You don't need to be the person who invented music to create something that sounds like absolute magic. You just need to be the absolute master of it.
All right, our final section, Section 5, Deepening Your Knowledge.
So here's a clear little roadmap from the source for expanding your musical horizons. Step 1, save these historical facts for later reference. Because hey, knowledge is an ongoing building block. Step 2, share this newly separated fact with a fellow music lover. Passing this knowledge on is such a crucial part of the learning process. And Step 3, continue following along for more beginner-friendly music theory and fascinating history. Actively seeking out the truth behind historical myths is exactly how we all become better, much more informed listeners.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a really provocative question from the source material to challenge your own assumptions. What music myth have you always believed?